Kia ora, good evening. My name is Anita, Director of the Arts House Trust. I welcome you this evening to our new exhibition, Pushing Parallels, and our accompanying panel discussion. I'd like to introduce you to our curators and staff members. To my right, Kiki Hall, Michael Prosee, Abbie La Rooy, who will be interviewing a few of the featured artists in the exhibition now. We will then close with the Q&A session, so get your questions ready, please. We are keen for them. And then we'll enjoy the public opening afterwards around 6:15. And I'll hand you over to Kiki now. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita, for that wonderful introduction. Hi, I'm Kiki, and welcome to Pushing Parallels, our exhibition. I'd first like to thank all of the wonderful artists that we have included in this show, and without your work, obviously, it wouldn't be as wonderful as it is. And also the Arts House Trust team for supporting us in all aspects of putting this show together, and to Kevin Thorne, Hannah Valentine, and Katherine Rutecki for joining us for this panel discussion. I'm going to give the mic to Michael.
Hello, I'm Michael. Thank you for joining us today. I just want to talk a little bit about what the show is. So, Pushing Parallels, how it came to be, and sort of the duality of the show. So, to start with, we have about 10,000 works in the collection. So that's a huge body of work to begin from. So the three of us looked at these works, chose ones that almost sat on a experimental level between two places. So the exhibition explores artists working in a multidisciplinary way, crossing over boundaries that traditionally define art practices. Many artists in the exhibition have trained or drawn influences from one material and translated this to another in the process. So the exhibition itself, it is prioritizing curiosity. So when we were looking at all these objects in the collection as a beginning point, it's what do you see? How is this made? What was it done to get to that point? So these kind of questions led us to what we have here tonight. I'm going to pass you over to Abbie.
Hi, I'm Abbie. I'm one of the three curators in the exhibition. Each of us also all work at the Arts House Trust, so Michael and I are technicians here, and Kiki does our graphic design. So with this in mind, we have a really kind of intimate relationship with the collection, and we all engage with it on a daily basis. So this gives us like a huge amount of kind of inspiration. And yeah, we also all trained in different institutions and have different materials that we work with. So I'm a ceramicist, primarily working kind of with traditional processes. Michael also works with clay and is a painter and a drawer. And Kiki pretty much does it all. So she is an amazing glass artist, a painter, works with clay, is an illustrator, like you name it, she does it. So with that kind of breadth of knowledge, we're able to kind of draw on so many different materials and processes, which I think is reflected in the show. So we've got kind of every material you can think of included in Pushing Parallels. It was also really important to work with both emerging artists and more established makers. So we have included in the show Angus, who's at the back. So he graduated a couple of years ago, and then we have makers who are really well known and established within Aotearoa. And putting these artists side by side creates a really interesting dialogue, and that was important to kind of raise the profile of emerging artists and have them integrated within the kind of collection works in a really cohesive way. So I'm going to pass you back to Kiki. She's going to speak with Kevin Thorne about his work. Then we'll go on to Michael talking with Kate, and then I'll talk with Hannah. And then at the end of the talk, we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you so much, Abbie. So Kevin.
Hi.
We have a couple of questions for you. First, do you want to maybe talk us through the works you have in the exhibition. They're not in this space, they're in the ballroom, which is just straight through that door, so definitely have a look afterwards. But yeah, do you want to maybe talk about the two collections that you have?
Cool. First, thank you for having me here. I think the whole concept of pushing parallel is really in line with my practice. So those two collections, one is called Xuan, which is based on the name of Xuanzhi, which is the calligraphy paper in China. I came from China 2010 to New Zealand to study architecture, and then after 4 years of practice, I kind of like left that practice and branched it out into more hands-on way of self-expression, which is through furniture and jewelry. And Kevin Thorne is actually not my name. My name is Hailiang Yu, and my English name is Kevin Yu. So this brand is very much, curiosity is a really great word, because I feel like through this brand I get to express my creativity in a very curiosity way. So with the Xuan collection, the reason I made it is when I was little, I did calligraphy through the age of 6 to 18. The touch of the paper is a physical memory that I always have. So I imprinted those paper texture onto the silver. It turned it into a matte finish, and then I just purely focusing on exploring the relationship between two planes, which is a very architectural approach and a very simplified to a binary relationship. So that's how those Xuan collection is created. So when someone wears this ring, they get to touch the ring in the way how I touch the paper. So without talking to anyone, I kind of pass on the physical conversation, the physical memory that I have to the people who wear them. So from that, it's a very, a piece of very private memory that I'm sharing with other people through jewelry. And then with Shanghai, it's always like, so Shanghai is based on the Shanghai Jing, which is traditional book. They talk about like fantasy beasts and landscapes. Like I'm always fascinated about that. And then by like manipulating the shape of silver and putting the gemstone in there, I think that represents the mysterious, the accent of that book, which I loved when I was in childhood. So that's the story about those two collections.
Thank you so much, Kevin. My next question is, as you said before, you have worked or kind of still do work as an architect. How do you think this has influenced your current practice, just kind of more in depth? Yeah,
I feel like my theory is like architecture is definitely a big part of my life. I spent 10 years studying and practicing it. So it definitely has a lot of like fundamental influence on my, even the way to construct something and the way to problem solving, and understand who is using, in architecture, who is occupying the space, in jewelry, who is wearing it. So that's almost become the way how I see a process of designing it. But also I think that's lead on to another thing is, I think every single moment of my being, even living in China, how I brought up my parents, my uncles and aunties, my friends, my ancestors, they all become part of the elements that form who I am as a person, and also that thing that nurtures my aesthetic as well. And I feel like I'm curious to life in a way that I love to know about other things and experience traveling, and that's how I end up in New Zealand. I think that's all become part of the element that crafts my aesthetic, and the aesthetic is the most important thing for me as a creative, as a designer. Because when you decide what material to use, how you proportionize that, is all become a expression of aesthetic. And that I think every single moment, the people that you see, the book that you read, the friends that you have, it's all kind of forming it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So architecture and embroidered my whole life, kind of like all contributes to the work, and they will keep contributing, including this moment, to my future work.
I really love that
Thank you.
translates through, and I think you can definitely see that in your work, because you're really good at collaborating with people
Yeah.
and coming up with new ideas all the time, always building up on the next thing, which is really cool.
Yeah.
My last question
Yeah.
is, how has your work prior to establishing Kevin Thorne and your creative space Nobodies informed your way of working or presenting your brand?
I think constantly through, I'm 36 this year, and then through my age, I feel like there is a consistent discovering and learning process. And it could be like a very coincident event, or a people, like a stranger that you met, that will lead you on to different paths. I think all that things that have happened, they all had some ripple effect to where I am. And it's come down to, I guess, what my understanding of who I am. And I feel like along the things that jump into your life, there's also another part of you consciously making decisions, because that's the part that you can choose where your next chapter is going to be. And I think those between the opportunities that keep coming up and the conscious decision that you make based on who I am, that's how they formed where I am and where it's going to be. And like there are so many things, I think. Like I think it's really hard to separate myself as a person and the practice itself, because that's so closely intertwined, and I think it's very lucky for me to have the privilege to be able to translate it through my work. And also a privilege to be within this beautiful space and to get more people to know about it. And yeah, I think I will just keep doing it. And there will be a lot of more chapters to come.
Yeah, we've absolutely loved working with you. I think
Thank you.
Michael and Abbie can definitely agree that we love how driven that you are, and the work that you do is so beautiful. And we also have, I just wanted to shout out at the end, we have Kevin's work, some of his jewellery for sale in the shop, so definitely check it out, which is near the entrance. And he will also be teaching a ring making workshop on the 23rd of February next year. So please book through our website. It's very limited numbers, and he will be able to teach you how to make it. It'll be a great Christmas gift, so definitely consider it. And please do check out his new wonderful space, Nobodies, who's made alongside with Noah and also Ray, who's here. So thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you.
I'm going to pass the mic to Michael now.
Thank you, Kiki. It's going to be hard to go after that. So, Kate, how's it going? So, Kate, your work, it crosses many mediums. It goes into different spaces, not just physically in these rooms, but also in other places. Could you just tell us a little bit about your training, where that took you, and how you came to be where you are now?
Sure. I think despite living here for a long time, very long time, my practice is based in a sort of the US material conceptualism sculpture, which is, I went to Alfred, the New York State School of Art and Design at Alfred, which is in upstate New York, and it's very like the most incredible studios, and everything is all hands on. It was the foundations-based school, so kind of quite Bajas, where we were accepted into the foundations program, where we had 2 and 3D foundations, and then after that, in our second, third, and fourth years, we could take whatever studios we wanted to. And you had to take a broad range of studios, and it was really intense. Yeah. As opposed, like we all, like in the glass studios, we learned how to blow glass. We learned how to cast glass. I did mostly glass casting, where we did a lot of hot casting, which is really cool. Like big ladling, huge steel ladles out of the furnace and pouring into molds and kilns, and sometimes we do performative works with it. We had incredible ceramics. I took hand building. I didn't focus in ceramics there, but I did take ceramics classes. I focused more in glass and foundry arts, which I've been doing glass for over 20 years now. I have my master's. I went in 2015 back to the US and did my master's in glass, where I also did a lot of foundry work. And then when I came back here, I got back into the ceramics community. Having not, I mean, I always been sculpting with clay, but I haven't been doing ceramics until I moved back here. Because my friend Katrina's here, and you got me interested in doing that again, and yeah, they did ceramics together for a really long time, and also just my interest in other materials broadened because, well, so ceramics is really accessible here, and it's my mediums that I usually work in is not so accessible, and also like what can I do in my own space, and so I have a lot of curiosity. Katrina as well, we started a project together after Katrina's an antiques dealer, and she would come to me and go, look at this cool decorative arts material that we'd never knew about, and we'd teach ourselves how to do it, and put in that work. And the 2 Scagliola works are our first experiments with our project that we do together, and it's really cool to see them. After they've been knocking around for a long time, and I guess I like moving between a lot of. I think we've got glass, ceramics, Scagliola, and then more traditional plaster stuff, and gilding, so that's 4 mediums. Yeah.
I think that answers that. So, one thing you touched on, which I quite liked, was the fact that you keep changing the material, and it's almost like the material choices and the curiosity and the learning of those materials. Because I know that in your other contributing jobs, you do conservation work, you get exposed to these materials, to what they do, you do research into them. Does that excite you? Is that what leads from one aspect of your practice to another? Or do you have multiple things that you're investigating all at once?
I think the latter. I have multiple things I'm investigating all at once. Yeah, and files of I'll have research into something for work, and then I go, oh, but how think about like with my practice and go, wouldn't that be cool to use it in this way? Like I get sidetracked a lot. But I love that, like, it's something we've talked about is like with the peanut bowl. I made the ceramic element in 2021, but I have only just completed the work because until it started going up, then I realized everything that it could be. And so things aren't like you can like things can be spinning around in your brain for a long time before it becomes something. There's it's just sifting through sands and then like all of a sudden something later on makes sense because of curiosity. Yeah.
I think time is the poignant thing there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, a lot of the things in this show, we're looking at an object that's made, like I know mine is revisiting another time in a new construct and removing elements or taking it away. And I think the ceramic piece we saw in the studio, we saw the potential in the object.
Mm-hmm.
But we couldn't execute that without you taking a vision on what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And then that led to what it is in a space, which is a site-specific response, and also quite well tethered to the show as well, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I guess main thing what we like I pull it out of the box in my studio and we're like, isn't this fun? Like, this is fun. This is fun. We need to do something with this, and it just was it's beyond a weird object now. It's just maybe a weirder object. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That was great. So, Kate, you have something coming up. Do you want to just tell people about that?
Yeah, we've got a solo show coming up at Public Record. It opens the 31st of January. And it's going to be glass and bronze and maybe some other special things that I don't know yet.
Okay, so last but not least, I'm going to talk with Hannah Valentine about her work. So her work's on the purple wall behind you. It's a collection of bronze pieces which were first shown at Visions in 2020, and then Hannah made some new pieces for the group of work this year. So kind of in a similar vein to what Kate spoke about, how was it revisiting the work 4 years later?
It's actually been a really nice process to go back and have a look at that body of work. I think returning to work gives you a really nice sense of thinking, okay, so what was it that was really working in this exhibition? What did I find the most interesting? That sort of thing. And then thinking also about potentially what holes I had to fill and how it could still relate to perhaps what I'm doing now. So I think all of my additions to the work are things that are a little more on the kind of delicate or domestic scale, or the smaller works are some of the newer pieces, and I feel like that kind of links back into some of the work that I've been making recently, so it's quite a nice process to go through and kind of rethink about it. And some of the works were existing and from the collection of my mother, which is very nice of her to loan them to the show.
Thank you, Hannah's mother. So this work has a really interesting backstory and concept behind it. So could you talk to us a little bit about the sort of meaning behind the work and how you came up with this collection?
So it started with an interest in marine permaculture and in seaweed farming, and I think I'd got to a point where I was feeling quite overwhelmed with climate change and things that were happening in that area, and I was sort of trying to look into things that were potentially positive that were happening, and stumbled across a few podcasts and a book called Sunlight and Seaweed by Tim Flannery about seaweed and its potential, and it's just quite an incredible thing. It has really wonderful carbon sequestration properties, it can grow incredibly quickly, and that sort of became the starting point for the exhibition. But then I think this kind of series of works became much more kind of a material investigation, and this looking at this sort of scale between constructed and organic forms and how much of the human hand there is in that. So they became a kind of sliding scale with some being much more organic and some being much more structured and rigid.
That's like a perfect segue to my next question, which is, working with just bronze, you're able to achieve such a broad range of kind of gestures and material qualities. And could you talk a little bit about how you achieved that, but also why you chose to work with bronze?
Sure. So it was a really fun series to work on. I let myself really explore different methods of casting and manipulating material, working primarily in wax. So there are works that were cast into a door or cast into found objects. There are things that have been cut. There are things that have been cast into clay or different surfaces, or allowed like the drying textures to create some of the effect. There is hot wax that has been dropped into water to get some of the more organic forms, and it's this really fun process where you end up kind of surrounded by these wax objects, and then the editing process becomes quite important, because kind of selecting what to cast out of that. That's probably where I chose the forms that ended up with these more kind of cellular structures, or things that were sort of seaweed-esque, to return back to the kind of original concept. But I think when I was kind of revisiting the work, playing around with different ways of forming was really the main thing I was focusing on.
That's great. Yeah, it's like a beautiful survey of basically every type of mark making, and it is a perfect reflection of kind of this sliding scale between the kind of human world and the natural world, and the sort of man-made versus natural. So if after this talk you look closely at the works, look, don't touch, you can see like imprints from Hannah's fingertips, and there's kind of evidence of her kind of interacting with the material, but it's pretty subtle. And I guess this idea of kind of human interaction, how do you want people to feel when they experience your work?
I don't like the idea necessarily of wanting people to feel it from. I think everybody has their own experience that they bring to a work, but I do really like I've always been interested in kind of tactile sensibilities and bringing things back to the body and having them at this kind of bodily relatable scale. I realised I never answered why bronze. Bronze is just a great material. It's really good at picking up textures, and it can be handled. It warms to your touch. It is very kind of present and solid, and like really kind of stubbornly so, in a time that I think a lot of what is around us is kind of screens and throwaway things. So it's what leads me to bronze. But I really like the idea that you might want to touch something, even if the space that it's in, like, it's not always practical for you to be able to do so, but I do like it kind of having that draw. Sorry, I went off track.
No, that's perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to give Hannah a quick shout out for her exhibition that's coming up with Gal Langsford, which is in January. So check that out. It's a group show in their CBD venue. So if anyone has any questions, we encourage them. Just speak up, and we can pass the mic around.
Anyone? Now or never.
So I've got a question. Like, curating a show is really challenging, and you've done it as 3 people collaborating together to create a show with multiple art disciplines. So, for each of you, how did you experience that collaboration?
Okay, I'll start. So yeah, for me it was like such an important part of the process was being able to bounce ideas off of each other, and sometimes like even convincing someone like, why does this work sit in this show and why is it important to be here? And having people to work with and push back against or get really excited with, that's like a huge part in creating a show that's cohesive and makes sense and is rigorously researched. But also that it's just like, it's really fun to work with people that you like working with. Yeah, hopefully the others agree. I'll let them speak.
Thanks. I think the one thing about having 3 people is you don't have to be the best at everything, but you can do the one thing that you know you can do. And together you end up with a more collective, interesting thing, because you've pushed each other that bit further to what you would have sat at if you didn't have someone to bounce from. I think that's what I really enjoyed. I enjoyed when we were looking through at the artists and we'd be like, yes, we have to have them. Please say yes. Hannah, please come into the show, please. Things like that. And then like we were looking through the collection to finish off the final touches in the show. And it was so exciting when we found Noel's work and took it out and every one of us liked it. Because that was a big thing, because if only 2 people liked it, it's a bit harder to convince. So I think that's what I found most interesting.
I think for me, it's been very interesting. I think we all have very different ways of thinking. I feel like Abbie is logical. You could say against this, but I feel like you have you're quite structural in your thinking and you're research based, and you'll really thoroughly think about what you're doing and the steps to achieve that, which I think is really cool. And then Michael's kind of a free spirit, like he loves process and how things are made and like letting things go how they go and investigating and responding to each step. And then I think I'm like kind of a between those things. Like sometimes I can start off with a concept and be like, okay, well, how will I do that? What medium do I do that with? Or I'll, make something to make something. Like Kate helped me make a glass spring onion because I wanted to make one. It was like that kind of thing. So I think that's really interesting that we're all so different. But when it comes to curation, there were obviously things that we not disagreed on but had different opinions on. But I think in the end we all came together and have a similar kind of idea of how we wanted this to go, and the plans that we made actually came through and it ended up being the way that we envisioned, which is something really amazing, I think. And not usually a lot of changes end up happening, but there was very minimal changes that we made, which I think is really cool. And all of the people that we worked with have been so amazing, like all the invited artists, and hopefully we'll get to meet some people from the collection today. And I think it's just been a really fun year of planning this out and making it happen, and now it's happened, and now it's the end of the year, and that's crazy. What happened? But I think that's just been a really cool experience to work with both of you. So yeah, I think that's my answer. Yeah. Any other questions? It's hard to ask questions at things like this. Just like, what do I do? What do I say? Did any of the artists have any questions for us, maybe? Okay. No, you're fine.
I have a question. What lead on to the pushing parallel, the concept of it?
Oh. Yes?
Like why?
That's a great question. Michael, do you want to start answering
that? Let's just say that there was a show in New York that I saw, which was about jewellery. And the show itself, the way it presented jewellery was new to me because I hadn't engaged with it at all yet at that point. Like, jewellery was this thing over there, and I knew what it was, and it was on someone else's body. So after that point, seeing that show, it like sat with me for years, and I was like, what is this? What actually is jewellery, and like how can it be? And like looking at other makers like Lisa Walker and being like, is this jewellery? Is it art? Like, where are the lines? And I liked the things that were in between, the things between the two. And then I got really excited and I looked through the collection for like things that were in those little kind of cut betweens. So like you have a painting, but it's not a painting, you know. It's got a support that's not a support. The paint is just the paint and it's draped over the top. Things like that. Or you've got a painting that's slide into another one. And that's, forgive me, that's sculpture. So like what puts these things in their boxes? That was the origins, the curiosity of these unknowns. And then, you know, you're looking at an object within a construct. You have access to its information, but you also have the object in front of you. And investigating it, I think, is quite fun. I mean, as a technician, I'm handling the thing. I'm trying to understand it. Like that's it. I mean, that comes with the job, I think. You're supposed to know what you're doing and putting it up and that kind of stuff. But I think that's where I thrive, is in like, how is this like put together and what led them to do that, and then following those lines.
Great answer.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming to listen to our panel. I think that was fun.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Yes, so we're going to transition into the exhibition now, the opening. So please do enjoy. We have some sushi out in the foyer, which we have vegetarian options too, for anyone who's vegetarian. Yeah, thank you so much all for coming. Thank you.